Man, I'm kind of tired today. I went down to Minnesota. Had to go do some business on there real quick. But I want to talk about this show, man, I've watched. I think it's called Operacion Repo. And it's for those of you who haven't seen it, it's about this repo company, and I think they're in California, and they go around and repo cars to people who can't afford them. And most of the times when they're repoing the cars, most of these people want to fight back and scream. And there was even one episode where a guy was like shooting at the guy, and then the one I seen last night, the guy took some gasoline and put it in the car and lit a match because he didn't want the guys to take the car. And I'm watching the show and what I'm seeing is that, wow, I'm like, what kind of world do we live in where we have people who are so attached to materialistic items? Like, I give you an example. I mean, they had one guy who went to his house. He was in Beverly Hills at a BMW, and they were filming a porno in there or whatever. And then, the guy is, of course, he wants to. Everybody has amnesia. Everybody kind of like had this situation where they were like, what are you talking about? I paid my bill. Of course you paid your bill. And that's why the repo people are there. But, I think the biggest thing for people was their pride. Because people spend so much money in order to impress others. And I just want to spend some time on that subject for a second. I mean, like, how shallow are you of a person if you have to spend money on a materialistic item when you can't really afford it? And the sad thing about that is that's the majority of Americans. I can't say enough, man. I mean, like with my situation, I hear all these people, the people who talk the most about, I have this and why don't you have this, and you're a douchebag because you don't have this, whatever. These people are broke, man. These people are broke. I'm living in a place right now, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. This place here, man, is like the Midwest. All it is farms here, man. And a lot of people ask me, why are you here? And I'm going to tell you guys why I'm here. I'm here because I was living in Phoenix, Arizona. And by that time, I was listening to a financial advisor a lot. And I said, man, I want to move to a place where the cost of living is low, where, we can go ahead and make real strong moves in order for us to be financially successful. And, my wife was from this area or whatever, so we said, hey, we come here. Now, not the most, when it comes to doing things and stuff like that, not the most desirable place or whatever, but at the same time, I'm only going to be here temporarily. And, one thing I noticed is that, there's a lot of farmers here. And farmers' lives, they're pretty simple. They're not, they're not flashy guys or anything like that. But a lot of guys that I'm looking at are millionaires. You wouldn't know it because in your unmature mind, we think that millionaires are people that wear suits, that have BMWs, Mercedes, they throw lavish parties, their kids are in private school, and so on and so on. But if that is you, I think you have I know you have a lot to learn about money and people, because the guy that you see that is very quiet, very humble, living in a middle class neighborhood, driving a humble car, not going out spending this money on things that depreciate, like cars, plasmas. He takes trips because he has the money, because maybe he wants to just not pay so much in taxes because he makes so much freaking money. He just got to spend money. You got to understand that, and I'll repeat this book over and over again. The Millionaire Next Door is a great book, because in this book, a guy conducts a study. And the study is when he brings people in who he thinks are rich. Well, first of all, before you can actually participate in the study, you have to have assets of $10 million or more. Okay, so he had caviar and everything all set up, nice and everything, and people were coming through the door. And then all of a sudden, he found out that the people weren't eating those things, and he was like, "Why aren't you guys eating the caviar? Isn't that what rich people eat? Why aren't they eating the food?" And then one of the guys said, "This is not what we eat." And long story short, what he found out is that the people who he thought were the real millionaires, they're the fake ones. They're the ones in your neighborhood driving around the cars, dressing real nice, in in the name brand clothes, shopping at Banana Republic, and all these other kind of things, and I'm just like, why? You know, I just can't understand it. And like I'll speak to the men for a second. Single men, single men, you guys feel that you got to have these things in order to impress women and things like that. You know what I'm saying? I gotta go in debt in order to make a woman feel that I have all these things. But when you go home, you know the real deal and the real story. And to me, that's just depression. That's just a depressing act. You fake like you have all this money and all these other kind of things, but you don't. So just me looking at some things and saying, just shaking my head, just like, wow, I can't believe this. For those of you who haven't watched Operation Repo, check it out sometime. It's kind of interesting. It's just watching people who are living a lifestyle, trying to impress others, and they can't really live up to that lifestyle. So it's just something I'm saying. I'm just kind of rambling about that. So for those of you who are new and haven't subscribed yet, hey, by all means, subscribe. I'm sure you'll find this channel interesting. I talk a lot about finance and how to stay on track in order to reach financial success. So until next time, see you later.